The goldfish was the first thing to die. And goldfish die sometimes, right? That's no reason to suspect foul play. Certainly no reason to suspect the children had anything to do with it. Only, then all the class potato plants died. The class project, shriveled up and blackened and dead. The kids said the plants looked just like dead snakes. You know kids, they've got such vivid imaginations. Ms. Robbins died next. She had a heart attack right there in class, and the kids just sat there and watched. They found her dead with a phone in her hand, the line cut clean in two. Must have been some kid playing with the scissors, right? The substitute broke her leg on the way to work. Slipped on a patch of ice, would you believe it? Had to have surgery to get it fixed. There was a complication, and she died on the table. Too much anesthesia. The class pen pal stopped writing back. When the administration tried to contact the other school, nobody answered the phone. Maybe the secretary was let go. Darren Anderson found the abandoned church in the woods. He said he found it by the smell. The place was littered with torn-up animal carcasses. We always thought there were coyotes in those woods. Can't let kids go playing there anymore. The town pets started to disappear. We figured the coyotes must be coming into town. People started carrying their guns with them. Never know when you might see a coyote. Darren Anderson had his throat cut, and his children disappeared. Could have been those child kidnappers. Sometimes they come up from the border and take kids back down to Mexico. Paula Torini vanished too, but they found her intestines smeared on the ceiling. The kids were gone, and there was a trail of blood leading out to the forest. The town police started shooting coyotes on sight. The kids sang nursery rhymes about Ms. Robbins, Darren Anderson, and Paula Torini. They sang about the devil's hands, dragging us down to hell. The school banned the nursery rhymes. It didn't help. People barricaded themselves in their homes. The phone lines all went dead. Some people tried to leave, but their cars went off the road. People fell asleep at the wheel or blew a tire. It happens. On the night of June the 7th, the kids all disappeared. Bloody trails out to the woods, but the church was burnt to ash. They couldn't figure out the cause. The fire marshal said lightning must have hit the roof, set the dry wood off. After the kids left, the adults all drifted out of town. No sense in sticking around. It's the strangest thing. I can't remember the place's name. People forget things, I guess. The plants in my garden died last night. Went all black and shriveled up. Looked like dead snakes. Sometimes at night, I can hear the voices of children singing nursery rhymes. They sing about Ms. Robbins, Darren Anderson, and Paula Torini. And then, they sing about me.
It was nearing the end of the witching hour, and most sensible folk were tucked away in bed, resting to face the new day. For the 4th, or was it the 5th, 6th, it was hard to keep track. Time that night, a cautious knock came on the bedroom door of one such couple shattering the silence that had settled over the house. For a fourth time that night, a sleep-addled voice called out, "What do you need now?" And a small and wavering voice replied, "Mommy." "Your turn," came a voice from underneath a mound of pillows and blankets. "Alright, I'm going, hun." The covers were tossed to the side, and a man in his late 30s disentangled himself and groped sightlessly for clothing. His fingers met a light switch, and the darkness was banished. The form under the blankets swore viciously and rolled over to block the light from unadjusted eyes. Click. Darkness again. "Hurry!" urged the small voice. "Hang on," the man snapped, most of his good humor lost to the first few repetitions of the ritual. He felt around until his hands met the cool metal of the doorknob. "What the?" A small girl launched into his stomach hard enough to send him stumbling back into the room. "Sleeping in here with you guys tonight, okay?" "No, not okay, kiddo. You have a perfectly nice big girl bed in your room. Mommy and Daddy's room is much too small for you and us. What's the matter?" "It's the monsters, Daddy," she whispered, scanning the hallway as if one might be creeping up on them from the yawning maw of the stairwell. "Anna, there is no such thing. We've been over this, honey." "Yeah, huh? I can hear them snuffing around in there, growling and stuff. They're probably hungry." Her father rolled his eyes. "I'll walk back with you." "No, want to sleep here." Her father scooped her up and carried her back down the hallway, ignoring her protests and kicking. "Look it. Nothing under the bed, inside the closet, outside the windows, or anywhere else. No monsters to be seen anywhere. They can hide." "Sweetheart, there is nowhere to hide in here. I checked every little nook and cranny. You're gonna have to believe me." He scooped her bare off of the floor. "You two curl up under the covers and get some rest from me, okay? You're perfectly safe. Promise." He shut the door gently and shambled back to his own room, sleep already overtaking him. "Is she okay?" his wife asked. "Maybe we should have let her sleep in here just this once. That's how bad habits get formed, you know. She needs to learn to beat these silly fears by herself." "You're right, I suppose, but I do worry about her." His wife's words fell on deaf ears. He was already snoring softly, a slab of dead weight leaning up against her. Anna cuddled deeper under her blanket. Her dad had said she was safe, but something still felt wrong. The gibbous moon outside cast odd shadows about her room, turning a doll into a grotesque alien being, a chair into a looming mouthful of teeth, ready to swallow up a little kid such as herself. She didn't like it a bit. And the sounds. She could still hear the deep, throaty gurgles, the snuffles, the growls. If anything, they had grown louder. She ducked her head under the covers and curled into a ball, hugging her knees. "Just a few hours until morning," she whispered under her breath until it became like a silent mantra, over and over. "Only a few more hours, only a few more." The noises seemed to fill her world now. They were right at her ears, surrounding her. She sucked a panicked, sobbing breath in. She was beginning to get uncomfortably hot under the blankets. Her nightgown was soaked with a mist of sweat, and her bangs clung to her face. She could have sworn that by the second the heat was building. much more heat than her small body should have been able to generate. Her breath was coming faster and she felt smothered by the heat. She kicked the blankets off, even though the noises still echoed all around her, or tried to. She hadn't remembered her father tucking her in quite so tight. In fact, the more she thrashed to get an arm or a leg free, the tighter it seemed to get. Yes, definitely. The blankets were tight against her chest and stomach now, and getting tighter still. She screamed for her parents as loud as her constricted lung capacity would allow. That didn't sound like her normal scream, Anna's mother said, bolting up in bed. Go check on her. She didn't have to say it twice. The two of them hurried down the dark hallway to Anna's room. Anna? Hon? The room appeared to be empty. Anna's blanket lay perfectly neat, spread out on the floor. There was no sign of the little girl. The bed lay empty, the pillow and covers still soaked with sweat. Anna! Her mother half shrieked, half sobbed, as her father checked any spaces she could have hidden in. He reached down to pick up the blanket and then recoiled. No, it couldn't have been. It was just exhaustion playing tricks on his mind, right? But no, he saw it again. The blanket moved. He felt the material writhe under his fingers, and he let out a hoarse cry. What is it? Her mother leapt around to face him. What did you find? The blanket was most definitely moving on its own. He felt it tighten in a nearly bone-shattering grip around his wrist. He could see it changing into something else. Something almost human. His daughter's words echoed in his mind. They can hide, Daddy. The blanket thing was looming over him now, rapidly changing. He pedaled his feet backwards, but still the grip did not loosen. He felt something in his wrist pop, and at that moment, his eyes fell on his daughter's blanket, the real one, neatly folded at the foot of her bed, where it had been placed the previous morning. And on the bed were a few pink scraps, splattered with something red, scraps of a pink nightgown.
This is a story from my childhood. When I was way younger, I had gone into my bedroom alone to change into my PJs, and my mom said I'd come back, asked her why Peter Pan was at my window, and if we could let him in. She of course ran into my bedroom, and sure enough, someone had pulled off the screen window and had opened it slightly. Needless to say, we moved shortly after that.
Roommates. When you arrive at college, one of your biggest adult tests is sharing a living space with another person. This test entirely depends on you and the people you share said space with. If you get along with your roommates, the test is easy. Simple things such as dirty dishes or unclean bathrooms don't faze you as much as they should. If you don't get along with your roommates, the test is considerably more difficult. Luckily for me, my college roommates were some of the best friends I had ever had. There was Marcus, a tall and stocky dude who was the starting point guard for our varsity basketball team. Marcus could be a jock sometimes, but he was genuinely a good person. Then there was Chen, a sweet, down-to-earth international student from Hong Kong. Chen was nerdy, but would give the shirt off his back to someone in need. There was me, just an ordinary guy who had no idea what he was doing. And finally there was Dylan. Dylan came from an affluent Californian family. He was laid back, charismatic, and was the life of the party. We all loved Dylan, because, well, he was just Dylan. I lived with these three guys from my freshman year to my senior year, and as the years went by, it looked like I was going to pass the roommate test with flying colours. Or so I thought. I mentioned earlier that Dylan was the life of the party. What I mean by that is the guy partied harder than anyone I had ever seen. He could drink any man under the table, even dudes twice his size like Marcus. He ripped bong hits like he had no lungs, and he could do lines of blow until he literally broke through walls. For the first couple of years, it was an entertaining spectacle, but once we reached the beginning of our junior year, Dylan's undergraduate hedonism started to take a toll on our living dynamic. The house was always messy, skanky girls and shady guys were in and out, and the noise of debauchery was overwhelming, but we put up with it because we still all loved Dylan. And then he started doing heroin. If you would ever live with a drug addict, it can be horrifying. You find things like needles in your kitchen sink, and occasionally an unknown junkie will be passed out in your bathtub. Dylan turned from a fun-loving goofball into an emaciated monster. I remember opening his door asking him to turn his music down, but he could just sit there with a shit-eating grin on his face and wag his finger at me no. His room reeked of piss and junkie sweat. He was like a ravenous hyena that did not care if it was dying of starvation. We should have left then, there, and moved into a different house together. Maybe that would have solved our current situation. Instead, we called his parents to tell them that their son was a heroin addict. They swooped down immediately and sent Dylan to a nice rehab facility in Malibu. When the next semester started, we welcomed Dylan back with open arms and open minds. He was sober now and had found religion, but we were just glad he was alive. We were glad we had our friend back, and for a while everything was back to normal. But the beast is not so easy to tame. I first suspected Dylan was using again when I found him passed out on the couch one Tuesday afternoon. I knew something was up because he was supposed to be back on campus for class. I shook him awake and he smiled at me with that stupid grin of his. "Hey dude, how you living?" he said. I brushed it off. After all, it could have been anything from weed to alcohol, but still it was concerning. It turns out I was right. Marcus noticed that Dylan had been acting strangely too. He said he saw Dylan leave in the middle of the night a couple of times and wouldn't see him until the next afternoon. We asked Chen if he had noticed anything odd about Dylan, and Chen replied that he had never seen Dylan go to class in the past 2 weeks. We decided to launch our own investigation. We scoured Dylan's room after he left, but didn't find anything outwardly suspicious. "Let's check his computer," Marcus said. "No way, dude," Chen replied firmly. "That's not ethical." But Marcus was already logged on to Dylan's MacBook. "I fucking told you." Marcus then whipped the computer around, revealing dozens of iMessages that Dylan sent to an unknown number. The unknown number was his dealer. Dylan was using again, except this time he was doing it outside of the apartment. We collectively let our disappointment sigh. Chen buried his head in his hands. What do we do now? But at this point I was done with him. "It's not my problem anymore," I said firmly. Marcus nodded his head in agreement. "At least he's not doing it in here." Chen's face grew red and he stormed out of the room. A couple of days went by and Marcus and I ignored Dylan's behaviour. But Chen apparently tried to stage an intervention with Dylan and some of his other friends. It didn't work. Dylan told them to fuck off and he denied he was shooting up again. This completely devastated Chen, but we told him that we were not Dylan's keeper. Then things started to go missing. "Yo, have you seen my laptop?" Marcus asked me one day as I got back from class. "Nah man, last time I saw it with you." Marcus shook his head and muttered that he would probably left it in his class. Then our communal Xbox went missing. Then one day we came back and found our stereo system was gone. "It's Dylan," Marcus said when we were eating in the dining hall. "He's pawning our stuff off to pay for drugs." Chen refused to believe that was happening. The poor kid was too nice to believe what was happening. "Let's just talk to him again. I think I can reason with him." "Fuck that," Marcus yelled. "I want to beat this dude's ass. I'm tired of this shit." Chen had tears in his eyes. "What the fuck is wrong with you, man?" he said softly. But I wasn't so sympathetic. Maybe I should have been, but at this point I was so over it. We tried talking to him, man, I'm in. Chen left the room and we all calmed down. But then his bike went missing and Chen's bike was his most favourite possession. He filed a police report, but of course they twiddled their thumbs. He came into our living room while Dylan was gone. Maybe this is the only way, he said quietly. Marcus clapped his hands together and we all started to plan. The next night we waited in the living room for Dylan to leave. It was around midnight when he came out of his room. Clutched in his hand was the iPod I had gotten for Christmas. Dylan quickly analysed our somber faces, but unfortunately he had no idea what was about to happen. "Not this fucking shit again. I swear you guys need to mind your fucking business," he said with slurred speech. "This ain't no intervention," Marcus said, as he cracked his knuckles. And then we were upon him. Every bit of pent-up aggression we felt in the last couple of months was unleashed on Dylan. He fell to the ground immediately and tried to shield his defenceless body from a flurry of punches and kicks. He tried to call out for us to stop, but who can stop a pack of vicious dogs? Finally, we ceased our attack and retreated back to the couch with exhaustion. I wiped the sweat off my forehead and looked at Dylan. He was dead. Somewhere along the beating, one of us had broken his neck. His pale and lifeless body lied motionless on the floor. One of his eyes was open, and one was closed as if he was winking at us for the storm we were about to endure. Marcus called out Dylan's name, but the three of us knew what we had done. Chen began vomiting uncontrollably on the ground. Marcus got up and started pacing the room. The next couple of hours were a blur. I remember us fitting him into the trunk of Marcus's car. I remember us driving to the forest by the town quarry. I remember the rain getting into my eyes as we dumped mangled Dylan's body into the quarry. I remember the distinctive thud it made when it hit the ground, and heard the sound of birds flutter away. When we got home, we made an airtight story. Dylan left to go shoot heroin with his friends. Dylan didn't come back. We figured it was perfect because a heroin addict is bound to have shady people on speed dial. We waited 24 hours and then filed a missing police report. We greeted his frantic parents when they flew down to our apartment. We consoled them when Dylan's remains were found 2 weeks later, and surprisingly, things went back to normal. Dylan's parents requested the police stop their investigation. "As far as I'm concerned, he killed himself," Dylan's father said without emotion. We graduated at the end of the semester. Chen took a job in London. Marcus went overseas to play professional basketball. I returned to my hometown for law school. And then weird things started happening to me. It happened the night I started law school. I was trying to sleep when I heard my door slowly creak open. I turned around expecting to see my cat had wandered into my bedroom. Instead, I saw a black figure standing in my doorway. I was unable to move as the figure slowly glided towards me and sat at the foot of my bed. I quickly turned on the lamp and saw Dylan. I tried to muster a scream, but no sound came from my mouth. Dylan turned to look at me, his face rotting away with that stupid shit-eating grin on his face. He wagged his decaying finger at me and then reached over to turn off the light. The next thing I knew, I was awake. I thought my encounter with Dylan was sleep paralysis or a night terror. But Dylan was back again the next night. This time he sat at my desk and watched me until I fell asleep. He comes every night now. I watch as his skin slowly starts to peel off. One of his eyes now hangs from its socket. He communicates with me occasionally, though never with words. Sometimes he laughs manically without end. Sometimes he screams until my ears burst and I can see the skin break away from his neck. But mostly he just cries. He cries for the life he wasted away. He cries for his brothers who betrayed him in his time of need. He cries for a second chance, one he will never receive. Is this what guilt feels like? Is Dylan merely a manifestation of the burden I still feel for killing him? Or has he returned to haunt us all? I thought about contacting Marcus and Chen, but I fear that will risk revealing our secret to the world. And I intend on keeping the secret to the grave. Even if Dylan follows me there, I've accepted my fate. But I guess I failed the test.
You'd be surprised on how many non-suicide calls we get. Sometimes, lonely people would just call because they were being bullied, depressed, or in an abusive relationship. Other times, we would get prank calls, or just really disturbing ones. As operators, even if a creep calls, we can't just be frank and tell them that no one wants to hear about their awkward fetishes. I used to work as an operator at a suicide hotline, which I won't name for obvious reasons. But over the years of volunteering, there were many calls that deeply affected me or left me speechlessly confused. One of my most baffling incidents was with a girl named Kayleigh. I was still quite new to operating when a girl named Kayleigh called. Kayleigh's case was quite different from the ones I'm used to handling, such as prank calls, actual suicide calls, creep calls, etc. She had called asking for advice on her suicidal best friend. Hi, my name is Kayleigh. Could you help me? Of course, we're here to help. I think my friend is suicidal. What makes you think that? She told me once that she wasn't happy at home. She sometimes gets picked on at school, too. But sometimes she mentions suicide. I want to help her, but I don't know what to do. I don't want her to commit suicide. She's my best friend. Kayleigh talked hastily, her nerves showing in her voice. Okay, Kayleigh. I can call you Kayleigh, right? Oh, sure. Okay, Kayleigh, let's not jump to any conclusions right away. Has your friend been acting strangely? Kind of. She's avoiding me. Avoiding everyone, really. She doesn't respond to calls or texts from me or anyone. It's like she doesn't exist outside of school. She quit art club, which she loves, or used to anyway. I'm worried because she never done anything like this, completely shutting down. Have you tried speaking to her about this? No, I'm scared that she'll distance herself more or hate me. And why would she hate you for worrying about her? Yeah, you're right, but how would I bring up the topic though? Remember, hypothetically, your friend might also be afraid of being hated and avoided by you too. So she doesn't get hurt? Yes, you could say that in a way, but this is just hypothetically. Okay, I get it. I think I know how to talk to her. Thanks so much for listening. I think I just needed someone to listen to my worries. No problem. Good luck with your friend. Wait, can I have your name so I can maybe talk to you again? Oh, generally we aren't allowed to, but ask for the name Robbie the next time you call, and I'll try to be with you again. Okay, thanks miss. Have a good day. That was Kayleigh's first call. I was quite proud of myself for being useful to someone. But my conversation with Kayleigh was soon forgotten as I carried on taking calls. About a month passed by normally, until Kayleigh's next call. At the time, I wasn't taking any calls for I was on a little break, and another one of the volunteer operators rushed over to me saying there was an urgent call. The person refused to talk to anyone but me. A person named Kayleigh. Kayleigh? It's me, Robbie. Is something wrong? There was a faint muffled sound that sounded like yelling. My friend, she's threatening to jump. I don't know what to do. I was taken back for a moment. It took me a second to fully process what was happening. I kept myself from freaking out. I wouldn't let Kayleigh lose her best friend. Kayleigh, please calm down. Take deep breaths. We've got to have a clear head in order to help your friend. Yeah. I called the police already. They're on their way. I'm sorry, I just need someone. Anybody. They told me to stall her and keep her from jumping, but That's perfectly fine. I'm here for you, okay? There's a few moments of silence and a few more muffled yelling. I'm sorry. Kayleigh, are you still there? There was no reply. The only sound was of a loud shuffling of the wind, like the sound a video picks up as you're running. No, Bree, please, don't go. Kayleigh? I'm sorry for not being there, Bree. I'm begging you, don't leave me. Kayleigh was yelling at the top of her lungs, the phone filled with her crying and voice breaking. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. All I could do was sit there listening, eyes tearing up. Miss. The line abruptly cut. The last thing I heard was I hoped to be a policeman or a passerby who was alerted of the situation. I bursted into tears as I regained my senses, and throbbing numbness in my chest was replaced by a sharp stab of guilt and grief. I felt dizzy and sick, so I excused myself for the day, the other workers being very understanding of my early leave. The rest of the day I tried my best to calm myself down. I told myself I wouldn't have been able to do anything, that I tried my hardest and I did what I could do. The next day wasn't any better. It was honestly a miracle that I could even wake up in the morning. My eyes were swollen and puffy. My pillow was strewn with tears and my hair resembled that of a bird's nest. The small hope that Kayleigh and her friend had still managed to make it out safe and alive gave me the strength to go back to work that exhausting morning. A few weeks passed, but the incident was still fresh in my mind. I managed to accept what happened, and although it still hurt thinking about it, that traumatic experience made me work harder. It was, after all, my first death. It had made me want to push harder to not let that happen again. The wounds from that day were beginning to close, and although I had fully accepted never knowing whether or not Kelly's friend turned out to be okay, I found out anyway. No, I didn't go into investigating. Kayleigh never once mentioned where she lived, so that was already out of the question. Instead, I bumped into Kayleigh at a cafe. I just finished ordering a vanilla latte when a young girl walked up to me. She had a long, wavy brown hair pulled into a ponytail with large, dark eyes that made her look like she was in a constant shock. Freckles peppered her hopeful face. She looked to be around 15. I didn't recognize her. "Excuse me, is your name by any chance Robbie?" I nodded. "Yes, I'm Robbie. I'm sorry, but do I know you?" "It's me, Kayleigh," she said. "Oh my god," I blurted. "How's your friend? Did she..." She shook her head. "Bree? Oh, she's fine now. I don't really remember what happened. The policeman that helped me said that I fainted and that..." She trailed off for a second, as if remembering something. But before I could ask anything, like a rubber band snapping back in place, she was back to normal. "Anyways, thank God. I thought I recognized your voice, but I was afraid I got the wrong person or you're the wrong Robbie. Are you here with anyone?" I shook my head. "No, just getting a drink. I don't have any plans for today. What about you?" She nodded to the back of the cafe at a small table for two. "I'm actually here with Bree. She's gotten a lot better. Her parents are taking her to therapy. I'll introduce her to you." I smiled. "Sure." She led me to the table for two and walked up to one of the empty chairs. "Brianna, meet Robbie, the woman who helped me. Robbie, this is Brianna Rose, my best friend." I stood there in shock. She was talking to an empty chair. An empty chair. Brianna Rose. Where have I heard that before? The image of a memorial for a girl who committed suicide flashed through my mind. I would pass it every once in a while when I went to that part of town. What horrified me the most was that Brianna Rose died 2 months before Kelly's first call.
I work for a 911 dispatcher's office. This is a phone call I received earlier this week. I haven't been able to get a copy of the transcript until today. I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is by far the strangest call I've ever witnessed. I wanted to post the transcript and get your thoughts on what this could be. I have a couple of different ideas myself, but I'm really looking for your help. 911, what's your emergency?
Hello? Yes, it's my mommy. Can you help me?
Your mommy? What's wrong with your mommy, sweetheart?
She won't wake up. I'm in the living room and she's lying on the floor looking at the ceiling.
How long has she been like this?
Her eyes are open. She's just staring. She won't even blink.
Sweetheart, how long has she been like this?
I'm not sure. I came in the house early with dirty shoes. I tracked mud all over the house. She called me a demon and she hit me on the head.
Are you okay? Do you know your address, honey?
I'm okay. I woke up on a couch. My address is 2934 South Parkway.
Stay on the phone, sweetheart. One moment. Okay, we're sending help now. Is there anyone else in the house with you?
No, just me and my mommy.
Does mommy look like she's breathing? Is her stomach or chest moving up or down?
No, she just has a needle in her arm. She usually just sits still when she has the needle in there. This time it's different. Maybe she didn't tie her arm right this time. Do you think that's it?
Not sure, honey.
Dispatcher, be advised. We are just around the corner from the house.
Do me a favor, buddy. Go outside and sit on the porch and wait for the officer to arrive. They're just around the block.
Okay, I'm putting on my shoes. Hopefully I won't get dirt on them. I don't want mommy mad again when she wakes up.
What's your name, honey?
Deacon. I'm walking outside now. I'm waiting on the porch.
Okay, Deacon. The officers are pulling up. Do you see them? Hello? This is Officer Thompson. Please open the door. Deacon? Deacon, honey, are you on the porch?
I am. Please tell him to hurry. It's so cold.
Officer 2, dispatch be advised. There's a body in the living room. No boys in sight. Alright, we're gonna enter the home. Officer 1, dispatcher be advised. We have a 187 lying in the hallway by the living room. One Caucasian male, age 10. Boy's wearing blue jeans, a white shirt, and dirty white Nike shoes. And one is a Caucasian female, a house dress, and apparent overdose.
Hey, before I go ahead and roll the outro, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who participated in my 300 subscriber special. You were all awesome. Links to their channels and Twitter will be in the description, and you should definitely check them out. Unfortunately, Kayleigh does not actually do narrations. She definitely has a talent for it, so if she ever so desires, I think that she should definitely pick it up. But since she does not currently have a channel, make sure to show her some extra love on our Twitter page for taking a leap into the unknown. Lastly, I want to thank you for 300 subscribers. It's honestly really, really amazing. I never really expected to get anywhere near here, so thank you. Alright, before I get too mushy, I'll let you go and play my new outro. Thank you guys again so much. Hello, 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 brothers and sisters of the Night Army. Thank you for sticking around until the end. I really do appreciate it. Have you written any true scary stories or creepypastas that you want me to read? If so, you can email me at edgeofnightnarrations@gmail.com. Want to join the Night Army? Demolish that subscribe button. And if you want notifications, give that bell a good ring. If not, just keep in mind that I upload every weekend. I'm also on Discord and Twitter, if you want to check me out there. Thanks again for watching, and remember,
monsters aren't the only thing that lurk in the dark.